Hey, everybody. Welcome to Steve Cooper's podcast for aspiring real estate investors. I'm really excited today. My guest, Carmelle, specializes in comprehensive wealth management strategies, financial education, and helping clients of all ages, backgrounds, and timelines to build, preserve, and grow their financial portfolios through personalized investment and/or insurance solutions. Long sentence. Her mission is to ensure that no person or family is left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so very pleased to be able to welcome Carmelle M'bikata. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for the introduction, Steve.
Carmelle, can you please help correct anything I said wrong and add to it and tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, no, you nailed it. Thank you so much. All I else that I would add is that people are super surprised when they ask where I'm from, and I say that I was born in Abbotsford, BC. Both of my parents are Congolese, though, so I am full Congolese, but I'm Canadian Congolese because I was born here. That's a fact. And like you mentioned, I am a financial professional, so I've been in the finance industry for over 6 years now, in various sectors. Now I'm more so independent. And we'll dive more into that, but you did a beautiful job explaining how I am definitely passionate in the financial education piece and truly helping people understand their different options, especially with my background, being exposed into the banking industry. So from working for the bank now truly working for my clients, people appreciate the differences of knowing how it works within the bank and then outside the bank. And I take pride in explaining in clear detail the differences and making sure people will feel confident at the end of the day with their finances. So, yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this. Let's get into it now. Um, so, Carmel, you place a real strong emphasis on financial education. In your experience, what are the biggest financial blind spots you see among otherwise successful professionals? Like, what are they missing?
That's a great question, Steve. The first thing that honestly comes to mind is that a lot of people are like, like you mentioned, they're successful in whatever career they're in, but finances is always that like touchy subject because people feel like, it's a reality, but they kind of want to hide it in a corner and not really deal with it. As they age and, they come to realize that they're getting closer to retirement or like, getting closer to different milestones, they realize that it's really important and they need to truly understand these different options and what they have, and especially even more so kids that they have, they really want them to truly understand how these things work for themselves. And it goes back to how I personally feel how the school system is, because for myself, I do have a bachelor's in business administration. So I did study like I had courses in accounting and like corporate finance and all that stuff, but like that's not personal finance. So that's completely different. And nine times out of ten, most people, they're not going to be dealing with, looking at financial reports and all that stuff. You need the basics of, how to budget, right? Like, how does a credit card work? These simple things that a lot of people don't know, and then they end up being exposed or they get these type of tools and when they don't understand how it works, it ends up being a rough go for them. And if we have areas where we can actually expose how these different things work, it will make it 10 times easier for people and then the next generation to come.
Yeah, no doubt at all. No doubt at all. I think that we really do sell our kids short on the financial literacy part of things. I think that's really missing. Um, let's talk about the difference between income and wealth. So many high income professionals feel financially secure because they're earning a good wage, right? But they may not actually be building that long term wealth. How do you help clients recognize the difference between income and true wealth creation?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It really comes down to you're making all this income, right? But what do you really have to show for on paper? Because yes, you're making all this income, but if you don't even know what's coming in and out, that's how some people, even though they are making all this income, they are living paycheck to paycheck because their expenses are obviously increasing. They have this certain lifestyle that they want to keep up with, but they're never truly building this wealth for themselves. And again, that goes back to the financial education piece of understanding that whatever income you're even making to begin with, you should be putting an X amount of money aside to actually truly build that wealth for yourself. Because I've never met anybody who said that they don't want to be wealthy, and wealthy looks obviously different to each individual. So for some people, it's as simple as not living paycheck to paycheck. While some people, it's to be that millionaire. Whatever that is to you, you do need to know first, obviously, how much you make, what is your end goal, and then ultimately have a plan set in place. And I help clients recognize all those counterparts to ultimately make that plan set in place to actually create that wealth for themselves. And then depending on the individual as well, the minimum, honestly, it should be at least 10% that people should put aside to actually build that wealth for yourself. But again, it varies for each individual, but that's generally the minimum.
No, it's important, right? If you're, and I think it comes back to compounding. So the earlier you start, it's not so much um, it's not so much when you get in the game as time in the game. Is that how that goes? Like it's really all about making sure that you're starting early enough to realize it at the back end, right?
Yes, that is a very important part too, because the scenario, would you rather have $1 million right up front or have that penny
Yeah,
compounding every single day?
yeah. And which one weighs more at the end of the day? It's certainly
Exactly.
pricing,
It's
right?
that penny compounding every single day. But again,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I'm ready to move on. Are you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, portfolios. So when you step back and look at someone's overall financial life, what does a properly structured wealth portfolio typically include beyond traditional, maybe stocks and bonds and stuff like that? What would you recommend to somebody these days?
Well, these days, people don't like paying taxes, right? This is the era we're in. It's always here. It's not gonna go away, and people are trying to find ways to essentially keep more of their own money in their own pockets, right? Compared to paying to our beloved CRA. So having tools in your toolbox to create, or not to create, to um organize your finances so that more of your money stays in your pockets is very important. So, using tax preferred strategies and making sure that I show to my clients the different options of tax preferred strategies to use because like you mentioned stocks and bonds, those there's some great options for that, but they have certain tax implications, where essentially in Canada there are four different types of strategies where they are actually tax preferred, so hence you are keeping more of your money in your own accounts, and that at the end of the day, that's what people want because we're working really hard to accumulate this income and, generate this wealth for ourselves. But if most of it is going towards taxes, then what's the point?
What's the point?
So making sure they know the options for that.
Perfect. Um, as you may know, and I think you heard in the intro, many of my listeners invest in real estate. And often, that's the primary vehicle. From a financial advisor's perspective, how should investors think about integrating real estate into a broader wealth strategy, perhaps?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I believe we had this conversation briefly before too.
Possibly.
Um, yeah, so with I'm not obviously the expert in real estate. That would be more so with you, but from what I know, depending on how you structure real estate, there can be certain tax implications with that too. So again, real estate is also a great option when it comes to investing as well. But if you truly want more control, flexibility, and to build cash values as well as leaving a legacy, there's certain plans that exist that people can truly capitalize and create serious wealth for themselves. But again, it comes down to even knowing how this works, what this option is, and I'm able to share these options with my clients so that they truly understand and ultimately take advantage of this.
Well, that's, I think, going to be a perfect segue into this question because what I really want to ask you is how to use universal life insurance as a financial tool. So, cash value life insurance is something that's new to me. I've been learning a lot this past year. What I'd love to learn about today a lot more is maybe universal life. So, it's I think, often misunderstood. Some people think it's probably purely insurance, while others view it as a long-term financial strategy. Can you please explain to us how universal life policies can function as wealth planning?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So, Universal Life is definitely one of my favorites because it goes back to what I was mentioning. It's one of the tax preferred strategies that people can use to ultimately the goal is to keep more of our most of our money in our own pockets instead of the CRA, right? So it's a unique wealth building strategy where you can truly not only create that wealth accumulation for yourself and for your loved ones as a legacy, but also you can also build cash value and use while you're still living. So it's essentially a hybrid of an investment and a permanent life insurance. And when I say permanent life insurance, that's essentially your whole life compared to, for instance, term that's only for a set period amount of time, depending on what duration that you get. And once that matures, you would have to reapply to get a new term. Compared to this, it's permanent. Plus, you build cash values that essentially works like a tax-free savings account. So if you know how a tax-free savings account and how powerful the tax-free savings account, where it essentially the growth is what's all tax-free. So same thing with this universal life. The cash value that you're building is all tax-free growth that you can use for anything and everything that you would want to use. Because this type of account, it's truly an asset. It's like owning property. So with this, it's not registered with within the government. It's more so in the insurance world, but the beauty and uniqueness of this account, like I said, it's a hybrid of investment and insurance, but then it taps into all these different other benefits and features that us as humans would ultimately want and need. Because again, I mentioned legacy building. Like if you want to create that generational wealth, you can use this while you're living. Because people, when they hear life insurance, most people they think, oh, I have no benefit for this. This is just going to be for whoever I leave it for when I pass away. But no, this is a unique one that it's the best of both worlds. You can use this money while you're still living for your retirement down the line. I have clients where they use this instead of the RESP, so the Registered Education Savings Plan, because they can use this account to build that cash value that they will be able to use for their kids post-secondary if they do choose to go, or maybe they don't, because that's how it is sometimes. So they can use that towards traveling if they want to go traveling instead, or they want to be an entrepreneur, so they can use that money to set up their new business or whatever the case may be. Again, it's not a registered account, so you can use that cash value for whatever you want because essentially that is your money that you've been building and compounding year after year. And it grows like a tax-free savings account. Plus, you have that death benefit that's also tax preferred that will be distributed to whoever you named as your beneficiary when the time comes. So, this is such a beautiful account to use as a wealth building account, but also, again, for some people, or for most people generally, you want to essentially keep most of your own money. So this is also another way to tax shelter your money, but also grow it and use it as you wish.
So I'm fascinated by this, like I mentioned, because I lived my whole life without knowing this existed, and then found out about it at the very, at this stage of life. So it's actually quite disappointing. That being said, my son will be taking advantage of cash value life insurance, but I'm torn. I don't know what's the difference between whole life and universal life. Maybe you can explain that to me.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question because they are in the like same family, but there are key differences. So some key differences is with universal life, for instance, because we were just talking about universal life. It's more flexible. So what do I mean by more flexible? Throughout the years that you have this plan, let's say year five, you have a little bit of financial difficulties, we can lower the premium so that, or pause actually. Like if you're familiar, I mean you should be because you do real estate. For some like mortgages, you can do pauses or vacations. Similar to that with universal life, you're able to do that. But with whole life, you can't do that. It's more level, it's more yeah, it's more leveled and it's just the same whatever. Let's you tell me, "Hey Carmel, my budget is $100." Well, with whole life, it would have to be $100 throughout the whole term compared to universal life. It could start at $100 if that's what you told me your budget is. But let's say, after 3 years, you're going to be moving up in your career, so you'll be making more income. We can already set it up actually so that in year three, we bump it up to $300, let's say. And then and vice versa. So with universal life, it's more flexible in the sense that you can move up, down, put more into your policy compared to whole life. It's just more leveled as well as when it comes to the actual cash value that you're building. In universal life, you actually have more exposure to participate in the market compared to with whole life. It takes a little bit more to for you to actually build that cash value. So if you're really wanting to build that wealth accumulation, universal life is more suited for that. Don't get me wrong, you can with whole life, but it's more so with dividends, and it's more slower, and also just the returns that you get is a little bit lower compared to what you would get with universal life. So it's more so a question of, do you want more flexibility and control and exposure to markets, or are you more a person who's kind of like conservative, more leveled, you want to stay within your same limit of whatever it is throughout the lifetime of the policy? Those are the type of questions you got to ask yourself. And then depending on the type of investor, you know what your answer is and you choose accordingly.
Okay,
Hopefully that makes sense.
it makes sense. So if I were to think about this in terms of real estate, as my mind always does, so I could actually, I think you said you can use it for whatever you want. Could I draw funds out of this account to use as capital as a down payment for a deposit for real estate?
Yep, you definitely can. You
And
can.
and would the balance of the account? I remember something about whole life account where you're continuing to, like, this is like a loan from your life insurance and not it's not a withdrawal dropping the balance, but it's actually just a loan from the policy. Is that the way that works?
Correct. It would be a loan. We also call it leveraging the
Okay.
cash value that you've built up. And then depending on, your finances, your credit history, and all that, you would have some sort of like interest rate, or some people have little to nothing, depending on those factors that I mentioned. But generally, it would be way lower compared to, going to the bank and getting a loan from them, and they give you whatever interest rate it would be. So yeah. And again, the benefit for that too, it's your own money, right? It's your own money that you've already been accumulating over time, and it's tax-free money too, which is a big deal.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, it surely is. It surely is. Um, let's come around again. So real estate investors eventually accumulate significant assets. How can insurance structures like universal life help with estate planning and taxes and transferring wealth to the next generation? How does that work? That's more the back end of this policy, but how does that work exactly?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It definitely goes back into the tax preferred option in the sense that, let's say, yeah, you have whatever real estate property or investment, and you end up selling it, and you have this whatever profit that you end up getting out of that, and you're looking for new ways to, invest that money. Universal life or whole life can be an awesome opportunity to be able to tax shelter that profit into a vehicle where that money can be, tax preferred, given that you're obviously able to be approved, because again, it is permanent life insurance plus the hybrid of investment. So you do have to be approved for this. But the beauty of this is that, there's also no limits on how many policies
Uh,
you can have multiple. So that's why there's a lot of people that have multiple of these type of accounts to take advantage of the tax preferred, cash value, so that they can essentially store these different liquid equities that they have in this, and they're just putting the minimum towards the life insurance portion, and that's how they're able to, shelter their money that way, but also build, because you're going to get a rate of return. So you are going to ultimately build this profit into even more.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Um, Switching it up a little bit, let's talk about risk protection. Um, and as it applies to portfolios and in a bigger picture. So, real estate investors, we often focus heavily on acquiring those assets, but sometimes neglect our protection planning, I guess you could call it. What are the biggest risks you see investors overlooking when it comes to protecting their wealth? What should we be thinking about?
The biggest risk. Um,
Probably coming back to the taxes you've been talking
it is. I was literally thinking that. I was like, I don't want to sound like a broken record.
about.
I was literally thinking that. I'm like, can I think of something else? But it literally comes down to that. It just does, because M most other investment options, again, there's some tax implication, and it can be quite heavy on what it is. But like I said, there's really only four accounts that I know of that in Canada that you can actually take advantage of, and they're tax preferred, which is the tax-free savings account, universal life, whole life, and the first home savings account. Those are the four accounts. So yeah, the risks are definitely, for one, wherever you keep your money, I would say, do you actually see the potential of it growing? That's what the first thing I would say. Because if you are truly wanting to build that wealth accumulation for yourself, well, for one, if you, wherever you keep your money, there's not actually the potential for it to grow, that's already, like, you're losing already your goal. Like, you're not going to reach your goal, right? Because inflation is already at a conservative 3%, and things are already expensive. And do you think it's going to get cheaper? No. So you need to be having a a decent rate of return so that you can actually build that money wherever you have to actually build that wealth accumulation for yourself. That's the first thing. Second thing, wherever your money is it actually safe as well? So going tying into the risk factor that you just mentioned, because yes, we want our money to grow, but we also want it to be safe too. We want the best of both worlds, right? We don't want it all to go down in the drain, especially if you are planning for your future, even your short term, both of them. There's a time and place, obviously, for all these different options, but you want the best of both worlds. You want that growth, plus you want your money to be safe. So with the universal life and whole life, the certain investments that I actually invest in, those investments have certain level of guarantees that people generally want. Because again, you want your money to grow, but you also want it to be safe.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. Third thing I would say is your income protected?
Mm.
Right? You're working very hard, you're getting all this growth and your money is safe, but then, a life event happens where you get a critical illness or you lose your job or one of the breadwinners passes away and you don't have a plan set in place, well, then there's going to be some serious issues, right? And then the fourth thing I would say is tax preferred strategies. So using tax advantage strategies to tie it all together. Because again, you can't have one thing and the other. All those four things that I mentioned, they all simultaneously work together. And you need all four of those things to ultimately reach the wealth accumulation that we originally talked about in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Um, so you work with people from many backgrounds and different life stages, you mentioned, right? So what are the first steps someone should take if they want to move from simply earning an income to intentionally building long-term wealth? How should they approach that? What would you tell
That's a great question. I truly believe that it all starts in your mind, Steve.
them?
Sorry, I feel a sneeze coming. I'm so
No
sorry.
worries. Go ahead.
That's okay. It went away. It all starts in your mind.
Yeah.
It really does. If you have the mentality, like a poor mindset mentality, it's gonna be very hard for you to even um save the little that you have. Okay? It really comes down to that because whatever goals that you have, ultimately, you have to start from somewhere. Okay? Like it's not just gonna miraculously start when if you do end up getting, hundreds and thousands of dollars, because we see it time and time again. There's millionaires, there's athletes, the list goes on that they end up accumulating all this wealth and then they end up losing it. Why is that? It's because they never had the mindset or the again going back to the financial education of how to sustain all this money that they have, right? So it truly just goes back down to the mindset as well as having the proper financial education to know how to, budget, to save, to sustain and ultimately grow your money to where you want it to be.
Mm, yeah. Um, the market, I think we mentioned, is fairly volatile right now. We're seeing a lot of large swings in Bitcoins, gold, silver, whatever people might be investing in. How does investing in a universal life cash value life insurance policy compare to those? I mean, we're looking at a lot of really high swings up and down in those markets. How does that life insurance policy compare as far as volatility? What do you tell? What can you tell me?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, universal life or whole life has been in the market for hundreds of years. It's just not well known because it's not really marketed. Let's be honest. We hear more about like, RSPs or, stocks, bonds, all the other things, but we don't really hear about this because it's just not marketed. It's banks and governments, they market all the different other things that we hear every single day, but not this thing, or not universal life or whole life because for one, it's also in the insurance world, and for vast majority of people, they will just deal with the retail banking level.
Mm,
And I can say this coming from also being in that space and working in that environment. I know that that's just the reality for a lot of people. And if you are just in that environment, you will never hear about universal life or whole life because they don't even have the capacity to offer that to you.
You know what? I'm a classic example of that.
Yeah,
Sad truth.
yeah. It's okay. There's still time if possible, because um, depending on one's age and everything, if you're still, healthy and whatnot, people still can get approved. I do have some clients who are up there in age, and we're still able to get approved for these type of plans because again, it's also a generational wealth as well as it can be used like a retirement account too. There's different ways you can use this type of account, which is really beautiful. But going back, sorry, remind me what was the question again?
Well, I was thinking about volatility, I believe,
Volatility.
and all of the various different things that happened in the market recently,
Mhm.
the ups and downs and the swing of um, the swing in the market. So trying to actually understand how stable universal life is
Hmm.
in comparison.
Yeah. No, it's definitely more of the stable option, and the reason why is because it depends. Because universal life or whole life, it's just an account.
Mhm.
Same thing with tax-free savings account. It's just an account. But you need an engine, which would be our investment to actually grow your money to however point you want it to grow. So the investment that I actually invest in is something called segregated funds. So segregated funds is a type of investment in the insurance world. So again, why a lot of people haven't heard about this either, which has levels of guarantee where the most popular one is like 75% of maturity of your principal amount or versus 100% maturity death guarantee as well. So that alone is a substantial amount that is guaranteed compared to, for instance, mutual funds, which most people have heard about because, again, like I mentioned, vast majority they'll just deal with retail banking level because there's different levels of banking and finance. So with retail banking level, the only investment that they can offer you is mutual funds.
Yeah,
So, and with mutual funds, there's no guarantees.
yeah,
It's all and again, there's different levels of your safety, balance or aggressive, and it's the same thing with segregated funds too. But yes, it is more stable because again, the investments that I invest in for my clients is segregated funds. So if someone were to even look into that and how segregated funds works and all that, and you go apple to apple comparison between mutual funds, for instance, you see that it is more stable. There's levels of guarantee too, which again goes back to that safety component that people ultimately want. Because, right, you want your money to grow, but you also want it to be safe.
yeah.
And then it also has that income protection part because there's a level of guarantee. There's also probate avoidance in that as well. There's the estate planning factor that it helps with segregated funds in the sense that whoever your beneficiaries you name, that will just go directly tax free to them, which is key factors compared to with mutual funds.
Mm.
Probate is not bypassed. It would have whatever investments you have in mutual funds, it would have to go through probate. And probate, at least in BC, takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So those are key differences that I would clearly explain to my client so that they know literally the difference between the two. And yeah,
That's interesting. There's a lot to consider here, eh, Carmel? I really.
yes.
Um, we're getting close to the end of the show. And one of the questions I like to ask everybody is about their why. So if you could tell me, why is it you've chosen this path? What are your goals? What are you hoping to achieve? And how are you going to know when you've succeeded?
Wow. Those are some solid questions, Steve. Okay, my why. My why. My why, honestly, it started with the financial education piece. Like, I'm very passionate about that because, again, going back to my experience from working for the bank, from now truly working for my clients, it's a night and day difference, Steve. because working for the bank, it didn't have the true opportunity to truly explain the differences of the different accounts I could even offer at that time compared to now. I have a widespread. I'm not limited,
Yeah.
as well as I can truly take the time to explain because anyone who knows and who has worked within the bank, you know how it's very high speed. You have back-to-back appointments and all that. And don't get me wrong, there's days where I have back-to-back appointments now too, but like I can really um plan my time and schedule it accordingly and just make sure with each client that I sit down with that it's one, I meet with any client like anywhere from 1 to 5 times to make sure that they truly understand how these works, the differences between what they currently have versus potential other solutions. Compared to when I was at the bank, it was just a really, I hate to say it, but it was like a quick in and out, honestly, because you just had to really get everything done. And then you had this certain quotas and all this other different factors um, that you just had to be very quick with it. So it's really the financial education piece and making sure that people know their options. Because when you are limited, and you're not ex be able to be exposed to other options, um, it's a scary thing, honestly.
Yeah.
So making sure people truly understand how these different things and money works and different options are, and ultimately becoming financially confident so that they can make decisions themselves. Like they don't have to rely on me. That's ultimately my goal. Like they don't have to rely on me. They know what to do. I'll always still be there, but they are confident enough to make decisions for themselves and know, no, yeah, this is good, or no, this isn't a good thing for them, and vice versa.
Okay. Very cool. Carmel, if somebody wants to find you, how should they do that?
Great. I am definitely the most active on Instagram. So well, you see my name, so if you put my name, I highly doubt there's anyone else named Carmelle M'bikata. So if you put my name, you will find me. But my Instagram is C underscore my last name without the apostrophe. I am also on LinkedIn. Again, Carmelle M'bikata. There's no one else named Carmelle M'bikata, so you
Somebody
will
else.
find me that way too. I am on Facebook too. And yeah,
There we go. Well, people should definitely do that. I hope they do.
I appreciate
Before everybody disappears, I want to make sure if you enjoyed this, you hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, then you need to fix that right away. And if you really enjoyed it, then please share it with your friends. Make sure you share it around. Thank you ever so much, Carmel. It's been a real pleasure. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Steve.
you joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me. This was on wonderful and a blessing and an honor for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.